It goes back to YouTube giving up on the whole idea of doing things to celebrate its platform and its creators. I think one of the problems that they started hitting is that, holy cow, there are so many creators. No matter who you stick in this rewind, a lot of people are getting left out.
How could you possibly make any meaningful highlight video that's 10 or 15 minutes long where anybody watching it knows more than like 15% of who's on the screen? So what do when you make this video celebrating people who are fine now, but you just know one or two of them is going to be a problem for you a few years down the line? I want to leak the fact that YouTube actually reached out to you, Kevin, to ask what to do about Rewind. What happened with that? How did that play out?
Hey, welcome to the Create Unknown, the home of Make Something Mean Something. I am Kevin Lieber. With me, as always, is Matthew Tabor, and there was breaking news that we saw coming a mile away.
Shocking news.
That we need
Nobody
to
saw
discuss.
It coming. How could we have seen it?
Nostradamus was blind to this news.
We definitely haven't talked about it before, and we didn't predict exactly this step by step, did we?
Well, I mean, we've done a couple of episodes on it now, but I think we can finally do the moratorium on the death of YouTube Rewind, what that officially means. I'd also like to discuss what it was, because I think that's important to do as well and interesting. And then overall kind of what it means from, just a YouTube standpoint and a creator community standpoint.
Well, it's dead now, isn't it? So Thursday the 7th, I think that's the day when the news kind of broke, which I think Tube Filter might have been the first one, maybe Variety. But somebody just kind of came out here and said that it was officially dead, and YouTube confirmed that not too long after, right when it came out, and they said, "Thank you to all the creators involved in Rewind. We'll be looking for your rewinds as we refocus our energies on celebrating you and the trends that make YouTube fire with a different and updated kind of experience. Stay tuned." What do you think that means?
What does the last part mean? Like,
yeah.
I don't know if they're going to keep doing those, that because like in 2019, the year after the big backlash of 2018, they did that list video, which was just like a listicle top 10, I don't know, like most viewed K-pop music video and stuff like that. And that was so soulless and frankly kind of boring, I thought. So maybe that's what they're going to continue to do, is just here are the most popular videos in various categories of the year. I don't know.
They claim they're going to keep doing that. The Tube Filter article says that it will continue to produce the annual trends lists that rank newsworthy videos and creators across different categories. So I guess that's the thing you're talking about, annual trends list. I mean, that seems like one step above like Consumer Reports releasing like the top 5 blenders to buy.
Yeah, at least the Consumer Reports is like functional and actionable if you're in the market for a blender. There's not really anything I could do with the information that, BTS got 3 billion views on a music video. Okay, all right, that's cool. That doesn't really improve my life at all, but I guess that's what we've been reduced to insofar as YouTube celebrating the year annually on what happened on their platform.
Well, let's see. That what you're talking about was 2019. 2020, they said they were, quote, taking a break from Rewind, and then kind of cryptically alluded to big problems in the world like racism and police brutality incidents and the virus and the rest. But it was such a strange thing that it's like, hey, we're just going to pause this for a little bit. This thing that was so roundly disliked that out of 17 gazillion hours of content ever produced on a site, this was voted absolutely the worst thing ever. We're going to pause that for reasons that have absolutely nothing to do with us. And then we'll get back to you. And then they've finally gotten back to us.
Yeah, I mean, that excuse was bizarre in a lot of ways. I mean, if anything, you would think that they could have done, if they were that concerned, okay, about the various global issues that they mentioned, I'm sure there were plenty of instances of people coming together and like spreading, good information on YouTube and just using it as an opportunity to talk about the community of YouTube and how those different, elements are bolstered in so many ways by the platform. And instead they're like, whoa. Due to these things, we're just going to back away completely. I mean, that's just a lousy excuse. That's PR. It's not real.
What you just said is what I would want the person in charge of this kind of thing to be doing. If I were Susan, I would want the solution you presented, where it's like, hey, here's a tough year. Now we have even more reason to celebrate these good things that are happening. But even if I didn't have somebody on staff capable of that, which we understand the limits to creativity and many other things with quite a few of these organizations. Even if somebody didn't suggest that, I would have rather had somebody say, things are terrible right now. We have serious problems that we haven't had to deal with on this scale in a very, very long time. Now's a great time to show like people dancing in a funny way. Let's look at a cat playing the piano. Let's look at Mr. Beast giving away a swimming pool full of gobstoppers. Like it makes the ridiculous, frivolous things even that much more valuable in contrast with, the world is on fire. I would have even appreciated that as opposed to the mindset that things are very tough. We'll see you when we see you.
Yeah, we'll just crawl into a hole because it's too depressing to talk about or to find the silver lining in anything. Like, what is that? That's absurd. It's just
the Homer
so
Simpson
ridiculous.
meme where he like pulls back into the ivy wall.
Yeah.
That's what happened here. Is YouTube Homer Simpson poked his head out of the fence and saw something that was very difficult that he didn't want to see and slowly inched his way back until he disappeared. And then once he was safely out of view and over the fence, announced that he was quitting this thing.
Right. Shouted from the other side of the ivy. You couldn't even see his face.
Gotta go.
You just hear his voice like shouting he quits. That's what happened.
How could anybody think that this was the best way to play it?
Dude, it goes back to the episode that we did, a few weeks back about YouTube giving up on the whole idea of doing things to celebrate its platform and its creators. They have officially given up on all of it. They have Homer Simpson into the ivy on every single level of all of these things. And it's so painfully obvious. I mean, there's no, I recall, we hadn't talked about this, but it was so funny when we recorded that episode, about YouTube giving up on creators. While we were recording, there was news that broke that YouTube was opening some theater out in Southern California, like the YouTube theater.
As you suggested such a venture. Yeah.
And we were like, holy cow, like this is it. We're shocked, but amazed that YouTube has done this thing. They bought a whole theater. I'm sure they'll put on like all kinds of events for YouTube creators, and maybe they'll do their own VidCon at this like 200-acre, event space. No, none of those things are true. 0% of those things are true. It's literally just a name. They slapped their name on the side of this theater in the same way that, like AT&T will do on the side of a baseball park.
Yeah,
that's
a single A minor league baseball park.
That's it. That's the extent of what their plans are for that theater, is just to have their name on the side and put me in a digital billboard. I did post that
that's true.
On Instagram,
cool.
As they have some sort of screen that shows different YouTubers. But that's it. As far as I know, there are zero plans to do anything with the YouTube theater that actually have to do with YouTube.
Well, when we've talked in the past about Rewind, I don't think we actually talked about really how it progressed, because I was thinking in the lead up to turning on the microphone and camera and all that today. I was trying to think of something else that people really enjoyed. Anything else remotely media-like that people liked and then year by year started to hate. You think about things like the Emmys and Oscars and Grammys and things like that. People don't watch those award shows the way they used to when we were kids. You know, it was an event. It was like a TV event, not quite the Super Bowl, but it had that thing that's like once a year you watch this because everybody's watching it. And this is kind of, an important thing in the world. Well, now, no, you just kind of, very few people watch, and you just kind of read a summary article the next morning as you're drinking coffee about who won and who didn't win, and that's the extent of it. But that's not going, it's not like millions of people are rising up to hate these things. They're just not so interested anymore. I really could not think of anything else that was awesome. It was an event when this came out, starting in 2010. Is that accurate, or is it even older?
I think it was 2010, 2011. They did kind of like a simple rewind thing, and then they amped it up, I think, in 2012. Is when they started making it into like a big production. I'm pretty sure.
What I'm looking at here, so you're pretty much on the money with that. What I'm looking at says 2010 was a simple year in review that had the 10 most popular videos on YouTube of that year. That's cool. That's pretty good. They put some more effort into it in 2011, and Rebecca Black was the host. So the Friday video was a major part of pop culture in 2011. So they put her on with, again, a top 10 structure, but it was the next level of that. And then 2012 is kind of where it began as we think of Rewind now, where it was kind of a comprehensive thing that was its own production. It had a lot of different people. It had music, it had videos, it had important events. And to put that in context, 2012 was the Gangnam Style year. So that was kind of the theme through the 2012 Rewind. But yeah, so we're looking at, 7 years, really, a 7-year cycle where it was, as we knew it in 2012, to the literally most disliked video in the history of the platform 7 years later. That's kind of wild.
Yeah. And if you look at the likes, dislikes on all of them until I think if I remember correctly, the attitude towards it started to shift a little bit in 2017, which I think played into 2018 being so like resoundingly disliked. But those first 5 years or whatever, the likes, dislikes are crazy high the other way. Like 1.7 million likes to 9,000 dislikes.
People loved it.
Or whatever it was. Yeah. So let's start there. Why did people love it so much? What was it that people loved about it? Obviously we can say that YouTube was just kind of a smaller place then. There were less. You pretty much knew all the trends. You knew. I don't remember which year I was watching before we started recording. 2013. I think it was 2013. You had like, What Would the Fox Say? I don't know if you remember that. What Would the Fox Say? Like everybody knew that song. Yeah. That song came out of nowhere. What Would the Fox Say? It was such a YouTube-y thing. And then you had other things in that video, like the Harlem Shake. That was such a YouTube-y thing. So everything that was in Rewind were things that everybody recognized. And then for the most part, the people doing these things, the people who were doing the Harlem Shake, and they were, dressed up as the What Would the Fox Say people or whatever, you also knew, I think one of the problems that they started hitting in 2018 and definitely by now is that, holy cow, there are so many creators that have millions and millions and millions of subscribers that no matter who you stick in this rewind, a lot of people are getting left out. That
Yes.
people are upset are left out. Why didn't you have this person? Like there was a little bit of that in the beginning. Why didn't you have this person? Why didn't you have that person? But, after a decade of nearly of YouTube growing year over year, it became completely untenable to match the expectations of the audience in terms of their favorite creators being involved.
Is that something that is going to kill a project like this inherently, or is there a way around it? Because what I'm thinking about a couple things together with this, about these eras versus now. And we've talked about VidCon in the past where, in 2012 or 13 or whatever, you went there, and even if you didn't watch the content that people were famous for, you kind of knew they existed, and you would walk around a convention like that and recognize most of the people there. In terms of featured creators, you knew they existed, and some you didn't, some super niche people, but you generally knew them all. And, now it's who the bleep are you, con? It's actually awkward at this point, because when you do like networking events, some of the private events that are part of the convention, you don't really know very many people anymore. And it's not because you don't want to, you don't try to. People like you and I, Kevin, spend a fair bit of our time in kind of the ecosystem of YouTube, and we still go in and recognize 5% of the people who are on panels. We don't even know who they are. And so if that's just kind of the case in the industry with this, how could you possibly make any meaningful highlight video that's 10 or 15 minutes long that isn't the same thing, where people, anybody watching it knows more than like 15% of who's on the screen? Imagine if it was sports and you knew how a couple sports worked, like basketball and baseball, but somebody made a highlight video from every sport around the world, and it's like curling highlights, which happy Canadian Thanksgiving today to all of you curlers out there. Highlight is another weird sport. Just imagine throwing these sports and so you're watching the highlights of these people doing what are supposedly magnificent performances, but you don't know that sport. You don't watch the games. That highlight is meaningless to you because you don't even know what's cool about it. Nobody would do that. Like when ESPN does its top plays of the week, if there's something happening in a sport people don't know, they have to explain why, or it's so visually clear that this was like a freakish physical performance, regardless of the game being played.
Mm-hmm.
So is it even possible when you hit that point where there's so many people doing so many things at such a high level, can you even have a generic highlight video that most people are going to want to watch?
I think so. Yes, I do think so. I think that, all of the sports within those sports have all-star games, right? Mm-hmm. So, the NBA is able to pick two teams to play against each other from the East Coast and the West Coast, or the East Conference and the Western Conference to play each other. I do think that they could. I think YouTube could pick, 40, 50 people and make a video that highlighted the most popular songs and trends from the year. They could do it, but I just don't think they even want to bother with that. It's such a problem, especially because I was looking when I was watching the earlier ones. The other thing to think about here with this is how many of these people have been disgraced later on, have gotten in some kind of controversy later on. A lot of them, like a lot of these notable people in these old rewinds, you look and you're like, oh, I remember when that person was, family friendly, and now they're, completely cast out of.
And even PewDiePie, who's come up a lot in the episode chat with people talking about his involvement back in 2013. YouTube started to recognize gaming content around that time and put that in the rewinds. People like that in the gaming community. And then 4 or 5 years later, PewDiePie is somebody who YouTube as a brand will not touch with a 10-foot pole, despite being at the time the #1 channel on the platform. So what do you do when you make this video celebrating people who are fine now, but you just know one or two of them is going to be a problem for you a few years down the line?
Well,
Dan the Latch says Logan and Jake Paul and how their careers played out.
Right.
They had some bumps, and that's a liability for the brand.
I remember controversy about the Paul brothers right away. Like even as soon as they were put in Rewind, people are like, "You put these guys in Rewind?"
Yeah,
and that's a real concern. And every industry has this. Every industry has people who get in trouble. Entertainment industry, musicians get in trouble, actors get in trouble, directors
Jell-O
get in trouble.
Pudding Pops is never going to live down their sponsor.
What about Subway? Dude,
yeah, Subway too, right?
Subway, that tanked their entire sandwich business, the person that they attached themselves, their brand to. So like this happens. And I personally think that YouTube just doesn't want to deal with it. They say, we're just not going to go to bat for these people. We're not going to have our brand attached to their foibles. We're just going to walk away. And they have.
That sucks though. But that means that you're treating every popular content creator as a potential explosion down the line. That's such a twisted mentality.
It is.
It's so reactionary and overcautious. You could make a decent highlight video with people who are as safe as it's really going to get. I can't be certain, but I don't think I'm going to wake up to a tube filter story about you being accused of any of the things that some of the other people have been accused of. Nothing is 100%. I don't know your inner demons. I don't know your secrets. But the odds have to be very, very, very low. And there are a lot of people like you out there. I'm not saying that they should build 2021 Rewind around Vsauce 2. I'm just saying, look, you can say Destin, Smarter Every Day, has been doing YouTube for such a long time, and he finally the other day hit 10 million subscribers. Like that's a major milestone for a guy who's been banking good content for a long time. Destin's a pretty good, safe guy as far as these things go. Why can't you do that? Why do you have to roll the dice on Logan Paul and Jake Paul, or even a PewDiePie?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, but ultimately, I don't know if Rewind is the best format for Destin anyway. Like what I would like to see is them to come up with, I've mentioned this idea a bunch of times, but to do documentaries, just to do end of the year documentaries on creators. Like I would love to watch a Destin Sandlin documentary about like what that guy does, how he comes up with his ideas, how he investigates the things that he investigates. And there are plenty of YouTubers whose content that I don't watch, but I would watch a doc about them because I'm sure the things that they do and the troubles that they have and the way that they, persevere is fascinating no matter what kind of content that they make. Right. And I think that would be, so here's the thing that kind of annoys me overall, like big picture about YouTube giving up on all of this stuff, is that they have such a unique thing. Like YouTube is such a unique place that, I know that TikTok is doing well, and there are plenty of TikTok creators that have millions of followers on there. But for the most part, that's still like a very nascent, brand new thing. YouTube has this longevity that like someone like Destin is a fascinating person to learn about. The fact that this guy's been doing this for so long, and he started, I think one of his first videos was where he put that camera on his chicken's head, and he just wanted to learn about how the chickens
motion thing.
Yeah, the stabilized motion thing, how they move their bodies and their neck kind of independently from their head. The thing is that YouTube still, as a platform, when it comes to, like, they want respect from legacy media. They do. They are terrible at getting it. They are just atrocious at figuring out ways to accomplish that goal. And in the past, it seems like their best bet for doing that is to just toss money at celebrities like Kevin Hart and Will Smith thinking like, oh, this will definitely be the way to get people to respect YouTube as a legitimate, media giant that it is. But it's like, why don't you elevate the people who are already on your platform and have been on your platform for how many years now? 15 years now, and are still going and have a strong following and have never gotten in trouble and have like a fan base that loves them. How about doing something like that? This has never crossed anybody's mind within the entire organization.
It would be kind of cheap and easy to produce relative to some of the other things they've done. It makes a lot of sense. It wouldn't necessarily be the most exciting thing, but it would be pretty good, and it has the capacity to be awesome if you tell those stories in a compelling way. It's really weird to me that on the spot in 2 minutes you can come up with a very good solution that, I don't know, how many people do you think were involved in this decision? Can you estimate to the nearest 50?
Oh my gosh. Involved in, I mean, even YouTube Rewind itself, man, was a behemoth of a project. There was a billion people involved in that. And I think that was probably part of its downfall also. It's just more and more and more and more cooks in the kitchen. They got longer and longer, and they just kept trying to cram more and more stuff in there. It became really bloated. In the beginning, it was like a tight 5-minute thing. And then by the end,
top
it got
10 kind of like, here's the machine gun highlight reel.
That's what it has to be. You have to have a discerning eye and a vision to make the thing like a tight 5, rather than it's 13 minutes this year or whatever. I don't remember what it ended up being towards the end, but it seemed like it just went on forever. And they just kept trying to please more and more people. It was like, oh, we got to mention this. We got to include this person. We have to, have this part of it. It just tried to do too much was another part of its downfall, is when you try to do too much, you lose any sort of artistic vision.
Yeah, the mission creep really affected it. And you can see the difference between thinking of that 2011 or 12 era where it's like, hey, here are the 10 things that if you've spent time on this site, you have almost certainly seen all 10 of them because they're that popular and that broadly appealing. Here's 10 of those, and we're going to have Rebecca Black post it, who is at the time one of the most recognizable faces on the internet. And that's all we're doing. To 6 or 7 years later, there's a highly scripted like thematic arc through the video with strategically placed people saying things that are meant to tap, kind of certain political ideas. This is way, way different than saying, look at a highlight reel of 10 things and get on with your day, as opposed to being all of the things. I'm trying to come up with a way to summarize what the last couple rewinds were meant to be. And you can't put it on a bumper sticker. It's like, it's a list of about 17 different things they're trying to accomplish. And it seemed to have worked out for absolutely no one.
Right. Well, and that's the thing. That's exactly what I was trying to say. It's like the more you try to do, the less you end up doing in this weird paradox. Whereas, in the beginning, it was like, all right, we got the ice bucket challenge. We got Gangnam Style. We have, it's like, here's like the 10 things or whatever that everybody knows. And here's, the top 30 people with the most subscribers doing them. It's almost like you have to just create like a rigid set of parameters. But again, there's too much noise around it. And I get why they've bailed on it. But replacing it with nothing is ludicrous. Replacing all of this with nothing is like insane to me.
News media articles, they all talk incessantly about how businesses can survive and thrive with all the challenges over the last year or two. And we've talked about it on the podcast as well, but it's not actually much different from real life. What's the best way to get through a tough time, to manage a crisis, to make your life better despite not every circumstance being ideal? You have to have great people around you. That's what works for families, it works for businesses, it works for multiplayer video games. That is what works. You find the right people, you find the compatible people, and you've got an advantage. If you've got a business, that means hiring really, really well and efficiently. In a few minutes, you can pop a job listing on LinkedIn Jobs and connect with over 770 million people instantly. That is roughly 10% of every human alive right now. One of them is perfect for you. Set a few screening questions, filter and prioritize candidates, hire the best one. This is so much easier than it used to be. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates worth interviewing and faster. Every week, 40 million job seekers visit LinkedIn, so give it a go. Post a job for free at linkedin.com/create. That's linkedin.com/create to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Look, you may not need it this second. Maybe you're building up to a hiring explosion in Q1 of 2022. Either way, get on the platform right now. Get familiar with it before you need it. LinkedIn.com/create. So they did tease that something is coming, which, by the way,
I don't believe it.
When you're teasing that something is coming, if you've been killing it for a while, like what's something? Okay, so a couple years ago, think of Marvel teasing a movie that something is coming at the height of the Marvel franchise. That's cool. People like that. They want to know. Star Wars has done the tease a bunch of times. Well, that activated the fan base. When people want to see something from you, then teasing works. When they have just roundly rejected and, as an international community, shit on what you do, with actual data showing how much they hate it, from literally every continent on Earth, in every language. There's no language that survived YouTube Rewind's translation. Yeah, you can't tease things and expect people to be into it or even care at all. Like, we just did the worst possible thing. If a football team went 0-16 in the season, next season gets ready to go, and they're like, big things are coming this year. Bullshit, big things are coming. Like, we know exactly what your team is.
Yeah. Right, exactly. Yeah, the Detroit Lions are like, it's going to be our year, 2022. It's like, no, it's not. It's never your year, Detroit Lions.
Well, the only people who believe that and are happy about what YouTube said are the people who literally are paid by YouTube. Like, you have an obligation as an employee to be to be excited to post on LinkedIn. It's like, yeah, Rewind had a great run. Just stay tuned for the next cool thing.
They're not excited either.
To feel that way.
No, they're not excited
not internally.
Either. No, they're not. They're not.
No,
also,
they're the masked Wojak, but they have to put on that mask.
There's no trust either. That's the other thing. There is 0% trust that YouTube will follow through on doing something good at this point, because they've just nuked everything. In the episode that we talked about YouTube giving up on creator stuff, I wish I had written down a list, but I'm going to try to go through the bullet points again off the top of my head. The YouTube Spaces are dead. Okay. The YouTube Spaces are dead, which was a huge project, a global project where they had these spaces all over the world where creators could show up and make content, supposedly, and have, different events and resources available for YouTubers. Those are dead. YouTube Rewind is obviously dead. The YouTube Next Up program, as far as I can tell, is dead. That was a program designed to aid and give feedback and resources to kind of burgeoning creators who were like kind of on the cusp of blowing up. They could go and get support from YouTube. I believe that is dead. YouTube Originals, as far as I'm concerned, is on life support. I don't know what is going on with YouTube Originals, but whatever.
Yeah, they're still putting stuff out. They're commercials. So I have YouTube TV because I don't have cable. It just doesn't, like, I literally cannot get cable, and I don't have satellite service, whatever. So my best option is getting YouTube TV, Sling, Hulu Plus, whatever those options. I do YouTube because it integrates with kind of everything else. Anyway, they show a lot of YouTube commercials between things, like when I'm watching a football game, as everybody else is getting a Subway commercial without Jared Fogle. I'm getting something for like a YouTube original, and they're still pushing them. Like, they've got a couple shows in development. They're still going. I am surprised based on us talking about it in the past. I thought it was dead, but they're feigning life at this point. So all I'm saying is that something is happening there, but I don't
said it
think
was
it's
on life support. The plug
Yeah.
is still attached to the socket in the wall. But that's as far as I will say is happening with YouTube originals. Like they're still getting juice to the life support systems, but year after year they have ratcheted that thing back like tenfold, since they first started it. And I don't know where they're going with it, next year. So, and even the way that they handled that was terrible, where outside of a handful of good shows like Minefield and Could You Survive the Movies, Cobra Kai,
which was also a Vsauce production. That's what I'm trying to imply here.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Me and Ralph Macchio. Ralph Macchio is going to be Vsauce 4, but I guess he wanted to reprise his freaking Danielson role. What they mostly accomplished doing was taking YouTubers and making bad TV. And I even spoke with a YouTube executive years ago. This is not recent, probably 4 VidCons ago. And he was like, we're just making bad TV. That's what we're doing. Like, well, there you go. So there's a little inside from the horse's mouth. We're making bad TV. So that also had a lot of promise. That's gone. The YouTube Beacon program, which they did many years ago, where they marketed YouTubers on like billboards and buses and subways. And I think they even had TV commercials too. They did that for 1 year, 1 round, and then killed that.
Yep.
And VidCon this year, they had no involvement at all. I think that largely had to do with Google as a company not wanting to do events because of COVID. But again, it remains to be seen what they'll do once the things do get better on that front. How interested YouTube will be in VidCon. So I hope that the picture that I'm painting is getting clearer. Like it's not Bob Ross's happy little clouds. It's like doom and gloom from YouTube, just killing all of their babies that were meant to celebrate YouTube creators. Yeah.
Well, we've had a couple very good suggestions in the chat that I want to bring up. But first, I had this little crisis of conscience where I thought, we respect privacy to the nth degree. I think more than any other podcast that I've listened to or talked with anybody about. We take that kind of thing seriously, and we're not big on putting people on the spot. But I think, okay, I've got an opportunity here to put Kevin on the spot, pull a little bit of a gotcha here. Do I do it? So if I have this crisis of conscience, I'm going to have to ask the chat. I say, do I pull a leak here and put Kevin on the spot? Here are the responses. Isaac says yes. Gusau says, of course you do it. Isaac then calls me a coward. Dan the Latch says, do it, no balls. And Taz says, I'm a shite bag if I don't. Baseweight actually behaved decently and just plain said, do it. I want to leak the fact that YouTube actually reached out to you, Kevin, to ask what to do about Rewind. What happened with that? How did that play out?
Well, that is true. I was invited at the last minute to just join a meeting, essentially. And the meeting was to discuss the future of YouTube Rewind. I said,
How did it go?
I never made it. I never made it to that meeting. There was a bit of a mix-up.
You didn't want to go? You didn't want to do it? Was that it?
You know what happened.
No, I don't want to actually help solve the problem. I would rather seethe privately on my own podcast.
That's right. That's right. Seethe.
So what happened then?
I tried to go. There was a little bit of confusion. I never got the invite. They had the meeting without me. And then I tried to set up another meeting the next day, and they said no. So they basically were like, nah, we're good. We don't need your feedback. we're good on our end. I'm like, all right, well. And then here's the best part of this story is that 4 business days later, they announced that YouTube Rewind was dead. So whatever went on in that meeting
Must have been grim.
But it could not have, it, as far as I'm concerned, could not have effectively swayed this decision one way or another. Because you don't come out as a company like 4 days later and say this thing is dead when 4 days prior you were on the fence about whether or not to kill it. Things do not move that quickly, especially when you're a gigantic global corp like YouTube. These decisions are not made in haste. So I don't know what happened in that meeting. I don't know what was said. I don't know. I swear at this point, with how quickly that meeting was, well, I don't know how long it was. Maybe there were a lot of meetings prior to this. Let me say that
Could
too.
be.
That's possible. Sure. Maybe they've been having these meetings for months. I am not privy to that information. I just know that there was one less than a week before they announced to kill it that was discussing whether or not to kill it. So they killed it. From my perspective, it doesn't seem like no matter what was said in that meeting, they weren't going to not kill it. From my perspective, and this stuff happens all the time in the good old corporate world. My take on that situation was that it was a cover their bases meeting so that they can say that they talked to creators and creators, agreed that it was time to move on from YouTube Rewind. That would be my cynical but probably accurate interpretation of what that meeting was for.
You're probably right, but we'll never know for sure because your reply to the email went to a spam folder.
Yes, so I was not invited. Well, I was invited, but I never got the link.
Oh my God.
That's how that went. So,
well, we have a bunch of suggestions that I think are worth a conversation here. And the first one, I think it was from Conrad. It's a little further back up than I have on my screen right now. But he said, why don't you do a thing like Nintendo where you just open it up and let the community vote on a thing? Why couldn't they do something that simple where there's just this tremendous pool of videos or channels or events and the 10 highest voted ones win? And if it's K-pop stans fighting about who's going to be 1, 2, and 3, and you get a K-pop dominated thing, so be it. Who cares? It's an open fan voting system. That's really easy to do. You don't have any personal accountability because you just say, hey, this is what viewers voted for. That's that. Why not do that? Is that viable or not?
I don't think it's viable because at this point, I just feel like YouTube is thinking, what do we get out of this? And that's how I feel like they're looking at all of this stuff. It's just like, what do we get out of this? Okay. We get like a lot of disdain. In the beginning, we got a lot of praise and a lot of love and a lot of attention. Then it turned into disdain, anger, resentment. And at this point, I don't think that they're coming back from that. I just don't. Not in the format of YouTube Rewind. I don't know how they pull that back. That's why my suggestion is to just do something totally different and do something that has more gravitas, is more honed in, is more selective, and honestly is more serious. Like I think that was another part of why it became so cringy at the end, is because you have like Stephen Colbert doing a Fortnite dance, and it's like, guys, this is so cringy. Yeah. This is not cool anymore. It's just embarrassing for everybody, including me, even watching this thing.
I think when I saw that idea, I thought this really is what they should do. They should just have people vote and you get what you get, and that's that. But I think you're right when you say they wouldn't get enough out of that to make it worthwhile. I hadn't really considered the cynical side of it. I didn't think that they would factor in their own wants and needs on that. And faced with something they're not going to get anything out of, well, why don't they? Why don't they kill it? But I was thinking more broadly about kind of letting people vote on things. You know Wikitubia? Are you familiar with this site?
Yes.
Wikitubia. So Wikitubia is a Wikipedia-style site that focuses on YouTube. And actually, as I talk about it, I'm going to look up your entry. I don't know if I've ever seen it. So they have 12,500 pages. That is certainly less than the total number of channels on YouTube. So you got to be kind of a certain size to have a Wikitubia page. Yeah, you've got one here. Music. Oh, right. Yeah, they point out Jake Chudnow music, things like that. So anyway, Wikitubia at a certain point introduced a Hall of Fame, a YouTube Hall of Fame. And each month they would have their users vote on who goes into it. I wonder if this kind of thing is a viable way to play it. If YouTube had a Hall of Fame sort of thing where they do recognize those people like Destin. You put Destin in the Hall of Fame. He's got demonstrable impact over a certain number of years and views and all of that stuff. He's behaved decently. You can have a Hall of Fame thing that is a mix of popular voting and of kind of it's a terrible way to put it, but like industry professionals. You can have people at YouTube, each of which having a percentage, and all of it comes into saying like 5 people each year go into the Hall of Fame. Is that kind of thing worth doing?
I don't know. I don't think so. I think that they run into the same thing where it's just like, I love Destin. I've known him for a long time. I'd be thrilled with him being inducted into the Hall of Fame. I'd be thrilled with Michael being inducted into the Hall of Fame.
Yep. He's in the Wikitubia Hall of Fame, by the way. Michael is.
Oh, yeah, good. Well, he should be. Yep. But as far as I can tell, it seems, I don't know. Again, maybe I'm just too cynical at this point about all of this, but it seems like the majority of the response to those things would just be people complaining, why is this person in? What about this person? They're just playing this game where you're like, okay, so I'm trying to like think through the issue here. The issue to me is like a thing like a Hall of Fame is that you're choosing favorites and elevating them above other people's favorites. That happened in YouTube Rewind as well. Like you're choosing the all-star team and everybody else's all-stars, didn't make it, or you're excluding this, subsection of YouTube, or et cetera, et cetera. It's a dangerous game to play for YouTube. That's why I personally, and maybe I'm wildly wrong on this, and I just keep beating this drum, but I feel like doing like a documentary or some kind of series that highlights a few creators, I don't think that it has the same, again, maybe I'm wrong. I don't think it has the same implicit, why didn't you do a documentary about this person? Maybe I'm wrong. But I don't feel like that's the natural reaction to that style of elevating creators. Like, I think that the reaction will be like, hey, you should do a documentary about, Palo. What, the reaction would be like, hey, do one about my favorite creator. It wouldn't be this like vitriolic, why didn't you? Or like, how could you choose this person over? There's no like adversarial component to it. Does that make any sense?
Right. No, there does. And so we saw that. I mean, speaking specifically of the documentary genres, I never saw anybody criticize iDubbbz when he puts out, the Airsoft Fatty documentary, which was awesome. And that's a great example of people getting into and kind of rooting for a guy when they didn't know he existed. They didn't watch his content. They still weren't interested in, his style of content for the most part. It wasn't their thing. That's okay. But that was a great documentary. People loved it. What they didn't seem to say was, okay, but why didn't you do X, Y, or Z? He comes out with the Dax Flame one, and then people are saying like, hey, for your next one, think about this person. But nobody was ripping on him for not doing a thing. They were just suggesting compelling subjects for the future. So if you do put out a thing that people like, that treats the subject with dignity, and it's well structured and well edited and all of that stuff, then you don't get those terrible negative reactions. You don't get the why nots so much as people looking forward to the next one.
Yeah, there's just a different reaction, I think, from people. And here's the other thing I really wanted to say. What is YouTube's goal here? What do they get out of it? What are they trying to do with all of this stuff that they did at one point spend millions and millions and millions of dollars on, and now they're spending no money on? I don't have this specific answer. Like, I'm not in those meetings. I don't know what, Susan or Robert or any of these people, think about when they sign off on these programs. My guess is ultimately to solidify and promote YouTube as a solid platform. I said solid twice, solidify solid, as a legitimate platform. One, for advertisers, because that's their business, is to attract Starbucks and Coca-Cola and Heineken and Goodyear and Johnson & Johnson, whatever, you know the list.
And without that, we don't get AdSense. It matters. So even though, they're making tremendous amounts of money off that legitimacy through the ad deals like that, it does trickle down, and that's where normal channels get their ad revenue. So it helps everybody.
The ad revenue is how people make money. It's how YouTube creators make money. It's how YouTube makes money. So I think their goal ultimately is to make YouTube look like a legitimate, safe place for advertisers, and one with great influence for, whatever certain demographics, great influence to advertise on. That's their first goal. And I do think that their secondary goal is one out of pride. It's one out of wanting to feel like they work at a cool place that has the respect of their peers who are in the entertainment industry and work at NBC or Universal or Disney or Fox or Hulu, Netflix, whatever. They want to feel like they also, work at a cool place that has unique, cool content, and good content that's worthy of being proud of, and they're proud to work, for. At this point, my question is, what are they doing to accomplish either of those goals?
I don't think they can do it at this point. It's just not, kind of, the climate isn't ripe for it. When they stumbled and did a rough job that people hated, instantly, absolutely instantly, everybody else did their own and did it better. And you remember PewDiePie's Rewind was extremely popular. That was well liked. Mm-hmm. That was great. There have been tons of people doing Rewind style things on their own, and YouTube has alluded to this in their stuff about canceling. They kind of softly said, we encourage all of these different communities to kind of continue to do their own. That really was a white flag to me. That felt like somebody giving up and getting out, just saying, we cannot compete with individuals doing it better, because PewDiePie is going to make a thing that he knows his viewers are going to love. Yeah, so Ben says in the episode chat, Saigon moment. Yeah, no, it absolutely had that feel of Saigon / Afghanistan, where it's like, hey, we've been doing this a long time, and we don't see a victory royale in the future. But yeah, how do you compete with that? I don't think you can. And Conrad immediately says, then don't compete. How about you give a few people the chance to make a YouTube sponsored video? I think there are a lot of solutions like that, where you do a thing that is distinctly different. You make it an annual celebration. Why does it have to be a catalog of things that happened in that year in the Rewind sense, like some video version of a shitty high school yearbook? You don't have to be locked into that format. Do something interesting, do something that creates new content, and make that an annual thing. From some of the things that you've said, Kevin, from what the episode chat has said, look at what a small group of people can come up with in real time in half an hour. All sorts of viable options, some of which are very expensive, some of which cost virtually nothing. There's got to be something in this list of things that would add value to the community, that would give some value to YouTube as a brand. And would be completely viable.
Yeah, well, first of all, it is funny hearing you discuss them throwing up that white flag. All I could think of in my head was them just saying, "You do it," like, fine, like a little kid, be like, "Oh, fine, you think you could do better? Why don't you do it? You just do it." I'm like, okay.
A frustrated mom when her kids, don't think the spaghetti tastes good, and the mom like throws the spaghetti down on the table and says, "Well, make your own dinner," and like storms out of the room. Yeah,
make your own dinner. That's you
think you can cook better? Then have at it.
Yeah, have at it, Billy. Good luck. You're not even allowed to use the stove. But
the difference, though, is that in this situation, in this metaphor, the kids making dinner are like Bobby Flay. PewDiePie is quite good at making content on the internet. He can make a good video. So YouTube just saying, "Oh, do it yourself then." Okay, challenge accepted by the people who are literally world famous for making amazing shit.
It's different, though. I mean, it is different. Like, YouTube put a lot of money and had a lot of resources into YouTube Rewind that nobody else has. Like, I liked PewDiePie's Rewind. Believe me, I liked it. We have interviewed 2 of the 3 people that edited that on this podcast, Grande and Dolan Dark.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
They edited that the way YouTubers would, which is like ripping and cutting together a bunch of footage, okay? They did not have this multi-million-dollar gigantic set, like huge music video level production that YouTube Rewind was. It's not the same.
Nobody jumped out of a plane in their edit.
Nobody jumped out of a plane. So YouTube has the resources to do a thing better. They just do. The problem is they did it terribly at the end. They had proven that they could do it great for 6 years or whatever, 8 years. And then it got crappy at the end. People's, whatever. We know what happened. Here's the thing that we haven't mentioned is that YouTube has a problem, okay? And PewDiePie's Rewind and Mr. Beast's Rewind will never fix this problem. And the problem is a perception problem from people who are not baked into the YouTube ecosystem, where they think YouTube is trash. Okay? That's what I saw this long Twitter thread. The reason I saw it because somebody for some reason tagged me in it. And I did not respond because I did not want to get into this with people.
What could go wrong?
Oh yeah, this will be fun. This will ruin my next 3 days. Just replying to and thinking about my replies. About how the premise of this Twitter thread, and it was a legitimate argument with a lot of very smart people, was that YouTube is trash. The suggestion was something along the lines of how people shouldn't even be making money off of YouTube because all it does is feeds into people making trash, because then they make money off the trash, and it's this negative feedback loop where like more and more trash is created because people are getting rewarded for it. Okay. Now there were people involved in that thread that were trying to explain that there are plenty of pockets of YouTube, like the EDU pocket, that has people like Vsauce and Smarter Every Day and Veritasium and whomever. We all know the list. A lot of people who listen to this podcast watch a lot of these channels. We've talked to a lot of people who run a lot of these channels, Physics Girl, etc. And the person was basically like, well, it's almost like not even worth it for like the tiny drip of good content because the majority of the pile is trash. That is a major problem that YouTube as a platform has. And I feel like it's their job to figure out a way to they'll never do a paradigm shift or really change like the narrative completely on this, but they got to be able to make some sort of baby steps in this problem towards celebrating the fact that there are amazing, beautiful, life-altering and improving and changing things that happen on their platform every day, every single day. People get so much smarter because of watching physics videos on YouTube. Yeah. Every single day.
The numbers are staggering. The watch time Oh, it's
or
crazy
fix
how
it
much time people
videos.
put into it. It's awesome. Yeah.
How many people, they need to fix their dishwasher or something, and they go to YouTube and they learn how to fix it for free, and it saved them time and money to do that. Whatever. These stories are endless, and they tell none of them.
That's what I use YouTube for the most, really, is finding a thing. And even if it's old and obsolete. There was this gun thing. I'm trying to think how to describe it without going super into the weeds. But basically, it came out in the 1950s, and I didn't know how it worked because I've never had one of those. All of a sudden, I've got one in my hands, and I'm thinking, well, how does this thing work? It was only around for a little while, this little technological advancement with one company. I'm like, I bet somebody has made a YouTube video where they demonstrate this, tell me how it works, like the mechanics of how it works, then shows me how to actually adjust the thing, whatever. And that's exactly what happened. I brewed a cup of coffee, and by the time that coffee was had the edge taken off of it, so like 10 minutes for it to cool down a little bit, I had watched 3 videos describing this very obscure mechanical system that came out in the 1950s, and I had every question answered, and it was faster than if I'd called the local shop and asked or something. It's incredible. The most obscure little niche topic had several videos of people doing it. That's awesome. And nobody, we've talked about this before, but nobody brings up very often how hard it was to find out information in the past. Opening books, hoping a library had the resource you needed, hoping there's an expert in your town. That sucked real bad, and life was slow. And then I can brew a cup of coffee and have an answer to an obscure question in minutes. That's crazy. It's absolutely nuts. And that's the kind of thing that they should celebrate.
Yeah, yeah. Or people feeling less alone and learning, that there are other people that are like them in the world that they can relate to and learn from. And my God, I mean, this is not rocket science. It doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be Destin Sandlin rocket science. It can be just a simple thing about feeling less alone in the world. And there's plenty of that in YouTube that YouTube facilitates as well. And like I said, they tell none of these stories.
Going to a tweet that I saw last night. Now, this is from Scott Adams. He created the Dilbert comic, and some people love him and some people hate him. That's not the point here. But he had a tweet last night where all the tweet says is, in the comments, tell me what new skills you acquired during the pandemic to improve your talent stack. So that has, I got to get close to the screen, 1.8K, so 1,800 comments of people saying things like, and I'm going to read them blind, I'm learning basic Dutch. I taught myself how to crochet. I worked through the pandemic so certain people could stay home and work on themselves. I've been a stay-at-home mother, and I bought a commercial building, renovated it, and opened a restaurant. This is insane. All these cool things that people are doing at a time when you'd think people aren't doing things. God, couldn't you make a really compelling, hopeful, positive, uplifting, amazing video about things like how people use the platform to do amazing things? Oh, that's what I want. I don't want a shitty recap of the year. I want my mind to be blown by the individual progress that people are making.
Well, and they have
this. Look at this. My wife learned how to teach my dyslexic son to read. He now reads on grade level. Do you realize what a goddamn miracle that is? how somebody could just have some time at home and be like, oh, I'm going to take this incredibly challenging problem that extremely well-funded schools struggle with doing, that it's a nut that very few people crack successfully, and I'm just going to pull it off because I'm sitting at home. You can't make a good 60-minute or 15-minute video about situations like that. I'd be in tears at the end of that. Sorry to keep ranting. I just cannot believe what's being served to YouTube on a platter. Great stories, hopeful stories, non-controversial stories that would make them look incredible. And they're just letting the flies crawl all over it. They're not touching it.
They just are Homer receding into the ivy. That was the last thing I was going to say about this
Well,
is
you
that
do it.
all of the other platforms, all of the other media platforms are trying to manufacture what YouTube has natively happening on their platform. They're trying to like manufacture the types of stories. They're trying to fake it. Hulu is trying to fake it. Netflix is trying to fake it. NBC is trying to fake it. They're all trying to fake it. YouTube has it organically and they ignore it. It's so unbelievable.
Well, I did think of something that YouTube can do, and I think it's going to work. I think it's a viable idea that would be popular. It would be innovative, and I think it's really their only hope. I think that YouTube should make a series about a real life Squid Game, but only using YouTube employees. Have you seen the show yet, Kevin?
Not all of it, but we've been watching it. Yeah, I like it. It's good.
So you understand the premise of you've got 400 or 500 people, and slowly but surely they are eliminated through a series of very simple games, and the winner at the end gets this magnificent prize. Well, this is what we do. We get 464 YouTube employees or something and put them in something like the Squid Games. And the person who comes out the other end, they get to decide what to do. They get to decide what goes in that year's rewind. They've earned it.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the only thing that YouTube as a platform can do that will be entertaining, that will be useful. Yeah, that's it. That's their only hope.
Well, I think that they have plenty of opportunity, and it seems like they're interested in doing none of it. So, and I also know that the people that work at YouTube are like dying to feel good about the things that they do. They're dying to feel
frustrating,
good about working there, and you know the ways in which they're improving the world, and it's all right there. And for whatever reason, YouTube is just not. It's like the ball is on the tee, and you have like Albert Pujols at plate, but he forgot his baseball bat at home. He's just standing there.
And then screams, "Well, why don't you hit the ball?
Why don't you hit the ball? You can hit the ball so good. Such a good ball hitter. Get your own bat. Bring your own bat. BYOB. Bring your own bat." I don't know.
We do have a couple.
That's all I got.
Questions. We got a couple questions that are on this theme, which is quite good. Gusau says, after discussing documentaries on YouTube in lieu of a rewind, would you want to see a rewind documentary that goes year by year through the production of those videos and highlights the stuff that happens along the way? I personally would be intrigued by that because, again, I'm so fascinated by kind of the rise and fall of this one. I can't compare it to much. That would be a little bit like the Fire Festival documentaries being so intriguing, I think. Would you watch that video, Kevin?
Oh man. It depends on how long it is, I guess. Because I don't know. But I think that I don't know how much drama would be baked into, like with Fire Festival, that was such a disaster at every step that it was like, wow, how can this get worse? I don't know.
Beyond the idea, they never actually executed that well, whereas Rewind was successfully executed for a long time.
Yeah. So I don't know.
That's an important distinction.
What the drama would be, other than like this thing we did for a while, people liked, and then they hated it.
Yeah. Conrad just wants to know how much we'd pay him to make the Create Unknown Rewind. What would we put in a create? Could we assemble? Well, we did that, didn't we? Didn't we release kind of a greatest hits of the year thing a year ago? Didn't we do that?
Yeah. Yeah. We should do that again this year, at the end of the year.
That's pretty good.
Kind of like a highlights
oddly,
episode.
I do remember that one oddly took way more time than any episode we've ever done. It just takes a ton of time to do the labor on that one, right down to, just kind of getting the clips and the timestamps. The actual assembly of it all is easy, but finding out what to put in is not. I suppose if you had an audience of 10 million, it's much easier to like throw a poll out and, people vote for their best moments. But we're currently hovering around 9 million, so we're not quite there yet. We've got a general one, which I like. I think it's a good one to end on because it's kind of hopeful. I tabbed out. So give me one more second to pull back. Yeah, this is from Baseweight. Sorry, I'm already thinking about an answer. He asks, at what point did you make the decision to work in the creative space? Was there a specific moment where you kind of thought, this is what I really want to do?
For
And your answer on this is a Kevin question primarily because that's quite a bit more interesting than mine.
well, there are several times where that happened. You know, it wasn't like a one moment and it's like this is what I'm going to do, but a couple of the moments. One moment was when, and I've told this story before. A roommate of mine in college took a film class, and he asked me to hold the camera for him. He needed to just shoot something for the class. I held the camera for him, and was like, "Wow, this is a class. You can just make movies. That seems like the type of class I would like to take." So the next semester, I switched my major to film and television. But you don't know what you're going to do in film and television because there's a lot of different jobs in that industry, a lot of different ways you can go. A lot of them are and they're so very different. So another moment I had was I had a job as the assistant to a bigwig in Manhattan.
Right.
And I hated it. It was horrible. I felt like I was dying. I just kept going to the bathroom all the time because I was like so stressed out and nervous. That was the worst job I ever had. I only lasted a week. And by the Friday of that first week, I was like, I'm not fit for this. And she was like, yep, good luck. So there was that moment where I was like, all right, I'm not working in an office. So that's good to know. I'm not going to do like the corporate ladder thing because that is not for me. And then another moment was the internship that I had at late night with Conan O'Brien. Because that gave me...
That sounded awesome.
It allowed me to see the difference between being a writer and being like any other job in that. I mean, there are a lot of jobs, a lot of people work on a show like that. It's like 2 floors of, a New York City building just full of people to make that show. But the writers that was the only job that seemed appealing to me. I was like, oh, wait, you get to show up every day and just come up with like jokes? That's a job?
Sit around and try to be funny.
Yeah.
What a job.
I guess, yeah. The through line here is like me being surprised that you can get paid and have a job in which you could be creative. I just didn't get that until like kind of late in life. I'm jealous of people who do that, straight out of the gate now in a lot of ways. But it took me a long time to understand like, oh, wait, being creative is a job? I thought you just... did that in your free time. So I had to learn that slowly.
Yeah, I think about all of the stuff very differently. Like I don't, I never had any kind of moments or experiences like that. And I bounced around between some different things and I've really never thought about what any of it is. And I haven't ever wanted to do anything, which sounds really strange. But the way I think about it is I never I've never really wanted to be anybody else. And that's a unique thing. And that's what I've kind of walked toward, where imagine like you go to a party or something, or a convention or anything like that. The feeling of being in a room of other people and not wanting to have their lives, not wanting to trade with it. If you had the option to trade with anybody in that room, would you do it? And to be able to think no is the best. That is the ultimate goal to me. And it doesn't matter if that has to do with creative things. It doesn't matter. Like I'm having a ball procuring artwork recently, identifying undervalued artwork. Now I am the least artistic person ever. I cannot draw. I cannot paint. I never will be able to do any of those things. I can't even envision things very well in my head. So who knew that I would develop an interest in that kind of stuff? But anyway, this is a long way to say that at no point have I met somebody and thought I wanted to be them. And that's the turning point for me. And if I do meet somebody who I would legitimately want to trade roles with and swap a life with, then I've identified something else that I want to do. And maybe that's more creative, maybe it's less creative. I don't know. That's how I would determine it. So I kind of have a different drive, as opposed to a lot of the people we've talked to who just, they need to draw. They need to make music. They need to write something down. It's just a different way of going about it. But I did think of one more thing. Sorry, Kevin. But what are the odds? What are the odds that whatever is coming, because again, we're staying tuned. We
are
told by YouTube.
I'm not.
We're staying tuned.
My breath
sure you are.
is
You don't
not
have a choice.
held.
You will be rejected from the YouTube partner program, and your AdSense will drop to 14 cents per million views if you don't stay tuned.
I am breathing normally.
Whatever it is, what are the odds that it's going to be called YouTube Fast Forward?
Oh God.
You were talking about something, and I thought about what they could do, positive things. And I'm thinking, what's the shittiest possible thing they could do next? And I couldn't come up with that, but I thought the worst possible thing they could call it is YouTube Fast Forward, and immediately thought that's what they're going to do.
That's what they'll go with. Yeah. The cringiest thing imaginable. Get everybody.
What's the percentage chance
great.
that it's going to be Fast Forward? We've got to commit to a number, I think. We have a 50% in the chat. Ben has a 73%.
No way.
I think it's higher or lower?
Lower. I was going to say 10%. Look, I'm at near zero that they're going to do anything. I'm approaching zero at this point that they're going to do anything. Because all they've done the last 4 years is cancel everything. All the things that I listed that they canceled, they didn't start anything new. Hello?
That's true.
They hadn't started anything new. They just keep canceling things. And now there's nothing left to cancel. It's all gone. So my feeling is that they're just done.
Okay. Yeah. So we've got a range of predictions that kind of run the gamut. The low is 23%, but it's also factoring in the if they do something. 90% chance they don't do anything at all, and you're right about that. And so the percentages seem to apply to the 10% that's remaining. I think if we average what everybody's saying together and think there's an overwhelming chance that nothing happens at all, in the case that something does happen, I'd say 40% is a fair average based on what everybody's feeling. Conservative, nice and conservative. But I do want to I just wanted this on record in case it happens.
Okay. All right. Well,
we have the witnesses.
It's on record. I am on record saying they'll do nothing. I will not be hoodwinked by YouTube again. Thinking I felt so hoodwinked by the YouTube theater announcement. My hopes were so high, and that was foolish of me to think that was actually something that would lend itself to celebrating the YouTube, and it's not.
They made it out to be a solution for kind of a new problem. They made it out to be something that
also,
it turned out
hold
not
on.
to be.
The fact that they've had 2 years to think about this YouTube rewind thing. No, really 3 years. 3 years, everyone listening. They've had 3 years to think about what they were going to do something else, to stay tuned. Look, we've been staying tuned for 3 years. It took them 3 years to say, stay tuned. No, I am not staying tuned. I'm turning off.
That's a fair point.
I'm turning off the radio. I'm not listening. I'm out.
No, I reluctantly and quite sadly submit.
Come on.
No, after you saying that, you're right. Like that point is just too strong. It wasn't a reactionary thing. No, I guess I hadn't thought of that. They skipped the 2020. 3 years is a long time. There's really no excuse on that side.
It's 3 years is like 30 years in internet time, and they have come up with nothing. So please do not think that they're ever going to do anything. We will, don't hold your breath either. I'm not holding mine. Don't hold yours. But if anybody who works at YouTube listens to this podcast, pitch the documentary idea. Please. It's a good one.
Yes.
Gosh, do something.
Yes.
And
I'm tweeting this right now. They're going to call the new version of YouTube Rewind YouTube Fast Forward. Now, I'm doing this on the Create Unknown account, not mine, because I do want, when we're right about this, I want the entire community to be right about it.
All right. This
This is a win for all of us.
We're all in it together. Yes. All right. All right. Well, that's all I have on this. The YouTube Rewind discussion is officially over for the foreseeable future, and in my opinion, forever. So we're all just going to have to move on.
Yep. See you, VidCon. See you, Rewind.
Yep.
It's all gone. Everything we used to like is dying or dead.
Yes. That's the theme. It's the theme of the episode. All right.
Utter hopelessness and despair. That's the new tagline. It's not make something mean something anymore. It's don't bother. Everything is meaningless.
No, it's you do it. If you want to do something, just tell somebody else to do it. That's what YouTube has taught us.
Somebody else needs to make something.
Somebody else
needs to mean something.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Somebody else's job. All right. That's it for us this week. And that's it for YouTube forever. We'll be back soon. We'll talk to you later, and we will see you, Space Cowboys.
Thanks for listening to The Create Unknown. We'd like to extend a huge thank you and congratulations to the Tots and Dumpster crew who save tiny little lives every single month. A tremendous shout out to our elite baby gang commanders. Linus, our newest. Trevsdead, Boromir, Botdogs, Chinchilla, Isaac, Conrad, James, Andrew, Jeff Davis, Patrick Pister, Baseweight, Monahim, Dojangles, and Zero. And thanks to our grizzled, battle-hardened child infantry. Jen Maffasanti, Kevin Menard, Mikhail Steinke, Risebread, Sean Malone, Triple Question Mark, Ryan, Kamikaze, Maria Marco, Sheep, Tom Videogre, Jelksies, and Dan the Latch. Thank you as well to our indentured servants, producer Dan Yosua and producer-editor Ben Webster. Thanks to Baseweight for use of Created in the Unknown for the opening theme, and to Electro Voice for giving us mics to sound good on top of it. The Create Unknown is an Unknown Media production in partnership with Studio 71.